Welcome back to Magical Musings with Frater O.D. And today I'm going to uh, wax poetically, as it were, on the power of poetics and the spoken word as it pertains to magical praxis. This is something that's been quite a development for me as I go deeper and deeper into my own magical and mystical praxis. The use of poetry at first, when I came into this, was so uh, boring, right? Even though I've always been interested, I've been writing poetry for a good portion of my life. It was something that when it came to magic, I was like, what am I doing here? I'm just reciting poetry. And it didn't make sense at first. And so I thought it was important at the beginning of this, before I got into any of the archetypal stuff, the magician's glyph and things like that go along with this manuscript, it was vital to talk about poetry and why it was so important in antiquity and why it continues to be important as magical praxis. You see a number of hymns that have just incredible potency, most popular among them now from a pagan perspective, the Orphic hymns, all written kind of in that hexameter. And then you have, of course, psalms from the more Western esoteric tradition, more of a Abrahamic tradition that has incredible potency magically, and are just absolutely beautiful to help you induce mystical states or just to give you some sense of wisdom. And so poetry has become very, very much important for me in my praxis. And so I'm going to begin by reciting a poem, reciting some of the piece that I wrote for this portion of the book, and then talk a little bit about how that moves me and how poetry has become a critical piece in my journey. In the beginning was the Word, a sound of creation profound, echoed from celestial spheres with a quavering bound. Crafted by hands of the gods, from the heavens it flowed, Moon in her silvery cloak, the stars in her tapestry sewed. Sun in his radiant blaze called forth the dawn of the day. Venus with beauty and love danced in harmonious sway. Jupiter's wisdom and might ruling the vastness of skies. Mercury, swift in his flight, secrets and truth in disguise. Mars with his fiery zeal, tempered by Saturn's slow ring. Each of their movements above, urging our spirits to sing. Zodiacs circle the night, mapping our destinies bright, guiding the paths that we tread, kissed by the muse's light. Symbols in sacred tongue whisper the arcane and old. Initiates read the signs, knowledge in symbols unfolds. Through the word, worlds are made, vibrating notes of the divine. In every soul there's a voice, instrument uniquely fine. Voices, the magical keys, unlocking the realms unseen, amplifiers of thought, crafting a realm of the dream. In our worlds lives the flame, sparking the poetry's spell, adapting the symbols we see, stories of heaven to tell. Celestial music resounds, guiding our hearts to ignite, with the divine flame within, kissed by the muse's light. Urged to sing in our own way, each voice a magical sight. For our poetry is power, our magic, our soul's own might. Echoes of ancient lore whispered in shadows of night, words of the sacred past leading us into the light. From the stars' luminescent glow, inspiration takes flight, and through our poetic craft, we weave the magic of the night. In the beginning was the Word. And when one begins magical training, there is a great deluge of memorization, reading, and conceptualization that must occur, for we're learning a language, the language of symbols. And these structures provide scaffolding for the magical initiate, guiding their steps until they reach the threshold of adepthood. There the training wheels begin to fall off, and the primal magician's own song ascends to the cosmic choir. It's this process of unbecoming and then rebecoming that releases the vocanima celestialis within, awakening the latent storyteller who weaves tales in this tapestry of the astral fluid. Words are not mere utterances. They are the echoes of creation reverberating between our mental field and the collective consciousness. They shape our stories, mold our realities, and determine our truths. Yet, as a primal magician embarks on this sacred journey, they discover a deeper truth, their own sacred song, resonant within the prime monad's storyteller. It is the mark of the bard bestowed upon them, signifying their mastery over the primal power of the word. The ancients revered poetry as a vital force that breathed life into their world. Unlike our modern, very linear narratives, their words danced in fluid patterns, breaking free from the confines of convention. The primal magician seeks to shatter these boxes, to return to the fluidity of primal poetry and rekindle its sacred power. Myths, too, bear an intrinsic potency, often overlooked by the modern mind. They were not mere fictions spun by ancient storytellers, but powerful narratives that shaped civilizations, moved mountains, and stirred the astral seas. These ephemeral tales, fueled by the energy of devotees and believers, accumulated a mass that could tip the scales of reality. And thus, the primal magician must immerse themselves in myth and its poetic cousin. They must steep themselves in the lore of the old, crafting their own poetry and mythic tales around the archetypes presented in this sacred text. It is through this dialogue with the mythic archetypes that power is drawn, shaped and brought to life by the primal magician's breath and spit. Words are not mere tools, they are the animators of life itself, the sculptors of the primal weave. They harness the great powers that move the world, channeling their might into the hands of the primal magician. And so, dear traveler, seeking to understand the mystic arts, wield your words with wisdom, for they hold the power to shape your destiny, nay, your reality. For in the realm of a primal magician, every word is a spell, every utterance an invocation, every story a testament to the limitless power of the word. So, within that, what I'm getting at here is the necessity for a magician, for a witch, to be very, very aware of the power of the words that we craft. Now, there's different levels to this, too. There is what we say with deep emotive intent. You get into ritual and you begin to speak with a different kind of power, a different voice, right? We put on theater when we're in ritual. You're getting into a spell, you bring emotion behind it, and you really let it fly. It's oomph! It's got this this big fucking power with it. That's the easiest way for us to see it. But there's levels. There are different ways that we use or abuse our words. Even our words that we cast online behind silver screens and the mask of personas that happen in a digital space. Our words carry power, they carry influence, sometimes force, and the use of which needs to be of utmost importance in the mind of the magician. For an initiate, you're still learning this. If you've stepped across that threshold into adepthood, you've got to know this lesson already. Because what we do with our word has direct impact over our life first, and then secondarily, everyone around us that becomes impacted by our word. When we cast a word, it's basically a spell. Any string of words becomes a more complex spell. Don Miguel Ruiz talks about this in great detail in his book, The Four Agreements, and I think every witch magician should read that book because of not only its beautiful simplicity, but its grasp on the impeccability of word and how careful we need to be with not only our thoughts, but our word. We think a thought. Where does it come from? It comes from somewhere within us. Sometimes it's stimulated by an external force, but that's the first stage of something coming into manifestation, especially in the realm of narrative. We think something like, oh, today's going to be a shit day. That's the first stage if we think that. If we say it out loud, it's almost bound and determined to happen. Like a self-fulfilling prophecy of sorts. Stub your toe, initial thought is oh fuck, this day sucks already. You say it out loud because you're enraged. Boom. The next thing you know, you're being cut off in traffic. After that, you're late for work. Your boss gets mad at you for that. This leads to another thing. You're at lunch. You're leaving. And you're saying, God, what a shit day. I was totally right. Well, you were, but it was also self-fulfilling. The power of our words is immense. Just on a small scale, right? That's the ability to create our own day. As it pertains to the world at large, it's also very important. What we say, how we speak, how we show up in the world, especially for other people, is of vital importance. Once we have mastered our own ability to rewrite our own narrative, there's one sign that somebody's using their word correctly, and that is if they're edifying or helping to build something new. Right? Part of the little work is to get yourself right, to master your own narrative, so that I can come about my life and say all these things, all these limiting beliefs, all these narratives that I have accepted about myself are no longer a part of what my story is going to be. I'm rewriting that. That's the lesser work. That's the lesser mysteries. I am changing the way that I am going to show up in the world. The greater work is what we do with that new narrative. When we step into that role, the power of our word is absolutely imperative. We have to know that when we speak, other people are listening, and listening intently. Think about a child. When you are speaking around a child that's just soaking up information, they're soaking up everything. You think, oh, they're not listening. They're watching the TV or they're looking at something else. They're always listening. There's always somebody listening to you, even though you may not see it. That's why it's so vital that we do this work, understanding that every word that we say has an effect, has a cause. The old statement, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Bullshit. Words are absolutely powerful, and they can shift and change the course of events. It is words that have changed and demolished empires. It is words that have changed the way civilization has moved. It is words that do this. So we cannot downplay their power, whether it's on a small scale or a large scale. Now, to how that intersects with poetry. Poetry, in my mind, is all just basically a magical construct. What we are doing with that word is we are manipulating not our conscious mind, but we are, in a sense, bypassing our psychic sensor, bypassing our sense of disbelief in the process, and speaking directly to the symbol making machine that is in the background, right? Our subconscious or even the collective unconscious. When we speak in that language of symbols, and poetry's a mystical melding of our own language and the language of symbols. We have all of the different metaphor, all of the different allegory, all of the different pieces of poetry are our toolkits as magicians. Learning them, learning how to use them is incredibly powerful. You go back to antiquity, whether it's Northern Europe, the Mediterranean, the Near East, go all the way over to China and Japan. Poetry is the mark of mastery, not only of self and of narrative, but of magic and of weaving reality. Almost every mystical master in some way has a poetic bone that is just super prominent, and you can see it. And so while it seems boring or it may not be your thing, it's really important for you to try, I think. And once I got over the whole airiness, very intellectual aspect of memorization and conceptualization, that next step for me was integrating poetry as one of my primary tools. Writing your own hymns, writing your own spells, basically putting your own unique touch, singing your song. It's finding your song, kind of like, what was that movie that was like Happy Feet or something like that, where he has to find his song. It's a very good metaphor for what we are doing within magic, finding our song. Once you find it, that allows you to take all of the different concepts, all of the different symbol sets that you've had, and you weave it into something new that's uniquely fit to you. Now, we have all these traditions. They're fantastic. They're wonderful. And they're great educators at a certain set of symbols, depending upon what tradition you go. But eventually, you can't just keep doing spells out of books. Eventually, you have to start crafting them yourselves. And the way that you're going to do that is by taking your words and matching them up with the language of the gods, the language of symbols. And that language is best delivered through poetic, and you can get real sing-song with it. You can be more devout and reverent. It doesn't matter. It's really up to your own aesthetic, but it's important that you start plucking the strings of poetry, as it were, as you get into this. And so that was what I was really trying to speak about within this, is how vital poetry is to the magical life, and how much you can get out of writing it, reciting it, just reading it too. You'll find so much of an enrichment past all of the very intellectual kind of stuff that we're really kind of immersed in more often than not. And so that's my piece on the power of poetics and the power of the word. Watch your word, folks. It'll get you.